On second thought, we're just going to keep this going. Hey, Pressure Pals. Welcome to the 153rd episode of the PRESSURECAST. VideoGamesAreDumb.com's weekly news panic that posts every single Monday on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn Radio, Google Play Music, and America's longest-running independent newspaper at ShepherdExpress.com. My name is Colin Tanner, and I'm caffeinated and ready to ramble to you about some goddamn video games. And I know what you're thinking. Hey, wait, didn't you cancel the show last week? And I did. I absolutely did. After several demoralizing weeks of being pushed off of the studio for some goddamn tuba players so we could play 3 notes incessantly, I thought, well, goddamn, if I can't get guests on the show, and I actually had lots of guests lined up for the month of October, if I couldn't get guests on the show, what was the point of even doing it? Because I don't know about you, but I don't listen to talk radio. I don't like to hear a show where it's just one person prattling on over and over and over again. I like to hear discussions between people. I don't like to hear one person talk. But unfortunately, without a studio and without space here, I don't really have a solution. Now, I've been talking to Steve, and he says, "I'll give Skype a try." And I'm like, all right, I guess we'll try using Skype, which I really don't want to do because Skype podcasts are just, I think people talk differently because they're in Skype. I think people goof off when they're on Skype. I remember I was listening to one video game podcast where I could clearly hear the person playing a game. I could hear the analog sticks moving around while he was on a podcast. I'm like, get the hell out of here. And then, of course, there's the audio quality issue where it just sounds like you're talking through a broken telephone. And even worse is when their internet's going out and it's just like, "Hey, Bill, how do you feel about this?" "Well, I was thinking, oh, I'm sorry, your internet got garbled up. Can you repeat that?" "Yeah, sorry about that." "Oh, his internet's having some issues. Please bear with us, folks." No, don't bear with us, folks. Get your internet fixed. So yes, anyway, I'm willing to give Skype a try. If I don't like the results, I'm never even going to release the episode. That's the current plan, and then I guess it's time to look for a different studio. So, yay! Anyway, because we didn't do a show last week, I didn't get a chance to talk about the Nintendo Switch, and I want to do that right here, right now, because I'm really interested. Obviously, they announced the Switch. It's going to be released in March. It's going to be a portable and home console hybrid that has these controllers called Joy-Cons that snap onto a screen that you can play on the go, or they can snap onto a controller and you can play it on your television at home. It's bonkers. It's crazy. And you probably heard a lot about this, so I'm not going to re-describe what the Nintendo Switch is. You know. And maybe you're excited. Well, I'm here to create doubt. Because while I was watching that reveal, I just kept getting these feelings. I'm like, "Oh, I don't think that's going to work out. That seems like an awfully bad idea." And you might be saying, "What the dealio? Why you gotta be such a jerk? Why you gotta be such a Debbie Downer?" Well, this isn't just from, nowhere. I have reasons, and I have statistics to back this up. So, I have 5 reasons why I think the Switch is probably going to bomb. I'm sorry. I feel I have to do this, and I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope it's a big success, but here's the reasons why I just can't let go. Let's start off with the reason that a lot of people were touting the system in the first place. They finally have third-party support. 48 developers have signed on for the Switch. Oh, glory day. Hold the phone there, buddy. Let's go back 4 years ago. It's E3. Reggie Fils-Aimé's on the stage and he's talking about the Wii U. And it's going to be a hit. You know why? Because a bunch of third-party developers signed up for the Wii U? Wait a minute. And I'm not kidding. Like, it was literally a white background with a bunch of developer names. Go back and watch. It looks nearly identical to what they're doing for the Nintendo Switch. Was THQ still around then? I think they were. Yeah, they were, because THQ was on the list. So, when Reggie Fils-Aimé announced all those developers, people were excited, just like they are now. But let's look at what those developers released, with the exception of Ubisoft, because Ubisoft will actually support anybody. I mean, they released Zombie U on the system, for God's sake. Let's start off with Warner Brothers Interactive. They released 18 games on the Wii U. They released Arkham City. They released Arkham Origins, which I've never heard of. They released Injustice Gods Among Us. They released Lego games. Lots and lots of Lego games, including an exclusive one called Lego City Undercover that also had a 3DS release. And they even released some Scribblenauts games. That's amazing. 18 games. That's a lot of support for the system. Unless you actually look at the games that sold well for them in those past few years, like Arkham Knight, or Shadows of Mordor, or Mortal Kombat. Those games didn't appear on the Wii U at all. Well, big deal. There were other developers like Bandai Namco. They released a bunch of exclusives like Tank Tank Tank, Lost Reavers, the free-to-play game, Pokken Tournament, and wow, they made a fighting game about Pokemon? Man! And they even released Tekken Tag Tournament 2 as a launch title. Very impressive. But where was Dark Souls? You know, Dark Souls, that's been doing really well for them. Oh, okay, wait, hold on. That's me overstepping because that game is too adult. You know, the Wii U was kind of kiddie. What about the Tales RPG series? Oh, once again, that's too adult, I guess. Too adult. They want to make kids games, right? What about Dragon Ball Z? They released a bunch of Dragon Ball Z games. Why weren't any of them on the Wii U? Dragon Ball Xenoverse 1 was on the Wii U. Oh, no, it was on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. It was not on the Wii U. Whatever. I'm just cherry picking here. It's clear that I'm just cherry picking. What about Square Enix? They got Dragon Quest X. That was a huge get. I mean, they also got Deus Ex Human Revolution. That was like a director's cut. That was kind of a big deal. I mean, they didn't get Tomb Raider or Final Fantasy or Just Cause, but who's ever heard of those series before? They're just made up, you know? I mean, whatever. Those aren't big games. What about Activision Blizzard? I know Activision Blizzard had released the big games on here, right? Well, they released Skylanders. See, there's a big game. 007 Legends, there's another big game. Call of Duty Ghosts, they got Call of Duty, and even got Amazing Spider-Man 2. Except they didn't get the Call of Duty games after Ghost. You know, the really good ones that were also released on the 360 and PlayStation 3. Well, big deal. It's not like they had other games they released since then. Oh, wait, they made those Transformers and Legend of Korra and those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games. Those are kids' games. And they're even made by Platinum. Platinum knows how to develop on the Wii U. Nah. Activision said no to that. And Diablo 3, which would have worked perfectly on the Wii U, was also not released. Third-party developers sign on, but do they actually put out the games? Debatable. I know what you're saying. Well, you're listing off all these games. How can you say they're not releasing games onto the Wii U? How can you say they won't release games onto the Switch? Well, they do early on. And then they start, walking back and, well, maybe we won't release that game. And, well, we don't have any plans at this time. They don't release the games that sell consoles on the Nintendo platform. Why not? Because Nintendo consoles generally are not as powerful as their competitors, especially when you consider that the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One will be getting updated consoles. But here's the problem with the Nintendo Switch. Either it's a very powerful handheld, or it's a very lackluster home console. So if you are a developer that makes games for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, you're like, we can't fit our game on here. This just will not work. Because Nintendo has decided to go with the Tegra chip from NVIDIA, which is a very good chip. I own the NVIDIA Shield Portable. I actually own the NVIDIA Shield TV. The graphics look good. Not as good as an Xbox One. Not as good as a PlayStation 4, but, they look good. And, it is what it is. But if you're trying to make something that's going to really, work to the metal of the PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, it's not going to work on here. It just won't. Even if it does for the first year or the second year, around that third year where we're still moving forward, Nintendo's going to get left behind again. This is not as powerful as their competitors. Well, big deal. Who cares? Because Nintendo doesn't need them. They're going to have tons of games because it's a mobile and a home console. So that means the people that make games on the 3DS will just start developing for the Switch. I mean, it will be exponentially more expensive. That was kind of a tongue twister right there. What I'm trying to say is it's going to be a hell of a lot more expensive to make a Switch game than a 3DS game. And that's a problem. Because if you're a person that makes games on handhelds, you do it because it's cost effective and you're getting a good return back. But suddenly you have to drop down console development money. That's really pricey. And, it's not like you couldn't just make those games for the iPhone. Huh? Make a little bit more money for yourself? Want to make some iPhone games? You might have to, because the Vita's not doing good and the 3DS is about to end because of the Switch. That's a major issue. Hell, Nintendo's even going to be developing games on mobile very, 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 very soon. Whatever. Who cares? Maybe it'll be super powerful. Well, if that's the case, what about the battery life? That's right. Because this is a portable, it has a battery. And those Joy-Cons that attach to the system, those also have a battery. I mean, and screen brightness, and it's even going to have a touch screen. It's going to have a share functionality. All of that stuff costs power. And if it costs power, what kind of a battery life are we going to get out of the Switch? Well, let's look at the 3DS. 3.5 hours. That's actually not very good. Well, what about the Wii U? Like 3 hours. And the Wii U isn't even the console. It's just a screen. It's just a controller that you can, use a little touch screen and press buttons. This is going to be the entire console on the go? Can it really do any better than 3 hours, 3.5 hours max? I doubt it. And even if it does, how much battery life are the controllers going to cost? Do I need to take that Pro controller because I don't want those Joy-Cons to be draining my battery? This is what I mean. There are a lot of questions about this because the battery life really makes or breaks a portable, as does storage. Now, rumor has it that the Switch is only going to have 32 gigabytes of storage. That's just a rumor. But if you own a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, with the free games with gold that you get every single month, games are bigger than ever. 32 gigabytes will not satisfy most AAA games when they are downloaded. Big deal. I don't want to download games. I want physical. Well, that's where it gets more complicated because the Switch is going to be using a type of game card. People keep saying cartridges. They're not cartridges. They're game cards, like SD cards. Okay, well, I mean, how much space is going to be on there? Even if it is 60 gigabytes, something like like a Blu-ray, this comparable amount of size. Playing a game off of an SD card doesn't sound like the best experience for performance. I mean, can you imagine trying to play Battlefield 1 from an SD card? It's not gonna look great. That's why on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, the game's installed in the system. But if there's only 2 gigabytes, that's just not going to work out. Can you imagine that you're only going to have one game on the Switch too? You're going to have to delete the game and just download another game? Oh, maybe they'll make the game smaller. Oh, great. So they're going to look worse on my big TV. Incredible. Wow. Thanks, guys. And lastly, the market wasn't impressed by the Switch. When the rumor was happening that the Switch was going to be announced later that week, Nintendo's stock went up by 4.6%. And you know what? That's not all that uncommon. Happened to Sony when they announced the PlayStation 4. Except after they announced the Switch, their stock dropped. Big deal. Same thing happened to the PlayStation 4 announcement back in February of 2013. You buy the rumor and you sell the news. Look at me, I'm a stock analyst because I have a little phrase I use. Here's the problem. Well, Sony's dropped 1-2%. And keep in mind, Sony was not in a good position at that time. Nintendo stock dropped 6.5%. They lost all the ground that they gained and then some. You're not supposed to lose that much after making a big announcement. And I'm not surprised that they did. Because these investors are not looking at, do you think the games are going to be good? No. They're looking at this from, what is this system made out of? Well, first of all, it is a home console. And home console sales have been down this year. They did a lot better last year. They're not doing as good this year. in North America. Okay, so consoles aren't doing their best. That's fine. Well, who cares? It's a handheld. Ooh, handhelds. They've been losing ground for a very, very, very long time. Since the iPhone was released and people started playing games on their phones, handhelds just don't sell as much. And you can throw all the numbers you want about, the 3DS sold this million billion units. Doesn't matter. Over in Japan, people buy multiple 3DSs because they like the special editions. Here in America, people were upgrading to the new 3DS and the 3DS XL, and that's why they release all of these, because they have to keep the system going. It's no longer feasible to just release a Game Boy in 1989 and then just not doing anything for like 6 years. It's not possible. It's not possible for them anymore because the handheld market is shrinking exponentially. See, I told you I could use that word. And okay, fine. It's not a handheld. It's not a console. It's a tablet. Ooh, you really don't want to be a tablet in 2016. Take a look at any of Apple's financial reports, and you'll see that the iPad is just dwindling. It's dying on the vine. I mean, they tried to revive it with the iPad Pro, and that doesn't really seem to be working out for them either. So you've got a trifecta of things that are not having the best year. Home consoles, which are doing great, all together, but are down. You've got handhelds, which are shrinking massively, and you've got tablets, which are yesterday's news. That's not good. Those things together just don't work out. And frankly, developers would rather invest in, more powerful consoles, ones that they're more likely to engage the home console market. They're not trying to go after everybody. Or maybe they, if they want to go after someone that's trying to be universally appealing, they'll go after mobile developers. Hell, that's exactly what Nintendo's going to be doing. They're going to be releasing Super Mario Run. Even now, it doesn't seem like they fully believe in the Switch. And neither do I. I hope it's a major success. I hope it does well. Because when the market does well, it's good for everyone that loves video games. And when it doesn't, you get less games. And there's less jobs in the industry, which means there's less creative voices. And that would be sad. But from where I am, when I look at the Nintendo Switch, I see a console that's 5 years too late. When people say, oh, this is what the Wii U is supposed to be, they're absolutely right. Problem is, this isn't 2012. This is 2016. And people want PCs. They want consoles. They want phones. Switch doesn't feel like it's any of those things. It's not decisive. We can kind of be whatever you want. No, I'm good. I want something that plays to one particular strength, not everywhere. And so, frankly, I think the Switch will sell out in its first month. They're going to be shipping 2 million units as opposed to 4 million, what they did with the Wii U. They shipped too many units. And then by year 1, year 2, it's going to be gone. I really believe that. Oh, don't get me wrong. Nintendo will still develop for it, but I think it's going to be exactly where the Wii U is. Anyway, that's enough of that. I hope you enjoyed this depressing, earth-crushing, soul-crushing bit of opinion. What's that? Oh my God, what is that? I swear, I just heard that. Oh my God, I'm late. Boop, boop. I almost forgot. It's time for the hype train. Feel the PR vibrations as we barrel towards video game satisfaction station on the hype train. I had a week off. I'm a little rusty here. Give me a break. This is the part of the show we tell about all those upcoming video games to get you hyped up to spend all your money and become a video game guru. We got to start off with the other announcement that happened on that exact same Thursday. Red Dead Redemption 2. It was officially unveiled. It will be out in 2017, fall of 2017. We'll see, because after all, Rockstar does like to delay their games. We got a trailer, and I gotta admit to you, I'm sure you've seen the trailer. It got tons of views. I was really disappointed by this trailer. It was just a bunch of, trees and people sitting in front of shops and people riding horses and a voice that's like, when this is all over. And then Red Dead Redemption 2. I was like, oh, man, really? That's it? That's all you got for me, Rockstar? I kind of know what the West looks like. And, don't get me wrong, the graphics look great. But that doesn't really tell me how the performance is going to be. You know, I'm just looking at a picture of a shop, and it's very detailed, and I'm like, good on you, Rockstar, but I need some deets. And I know they've got plenty of time, and I know it's like, oh, Rockstar doesn't play like that, but I thought that the original reveal of Grand Theft Auto 5 did a much better job. It snuck in a lot of clues about what was going to be happening, and, you know, it also talked about what the story was going to be like, without even saying a word. It was, you know, it was just videos and things like that. Red Dead Redemption 2, I hope it only has one playable character, though. I hope they don't do what they did with Grand Theft Auto 5 and have 3 uninteresting characters, because I thought that was a disaster. I did not like the story in Grand Theft Auto 5. And, you know, they're talking about how they're going to have an online mode, and that, in fact, some of these features will be exclusive to PlayStation 4, or, you know, a timed exclusive for online items that you can obtain and craft or whatever. I hope they don't do what they did with Grand Theft Auto 5 and make it more about online play than, you know, single-player updates, because Red Dead Redemption had one of the best DLCs of all time, Undead Nightmare. Completely fantastic. Blew me away. Still one of my favorite DLCs of all time. But I'm crossing my fingers on this. There's just not much to talk about. So let's just move on. Toot toot. So, oh yeah, hold on. I forgot one bit of news here. Red Dead Redemption is available on PlayStation now, meaning you can play it on PC finally. So there you go. Toot toot. Mark Cerny, the lead architect of the PlayStation 4, was talking about the PlayStation 4 Pro, and he said that they've actually added 1 extra gigabyte of RAM to the system. Here's what Mark Cerny said. We felt games need a little more memory, about 10% more, so we added about 1 gigabyte of slow, conventional DRAM to the console. What he means is that this DRAM is going to be used for background applications. Currently on the PlayStation 4, it has 8 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. However, 3.5 gigabytes of that RAM is allocated to background application, the operating system itself. The way that you can switch to share functionality instantly is because of that 3.5 gigabytes of RAM. So they've boosted that with an extra gigabyte of slower RAM, right? And now that'll be allowing an extra gigabyte of the DDR5 RAM to be used on games. So that's actually very good news. PlayStation 4 Pro is going to be out next month. Honestly, if you're thinking about buying one, I would say hold off. I was actually going to be picking one up, but I thought about it, and no, because whenever they launch new consoles, a lot of them are, you know, busted. So unless you want a broken system after 3 weeks of use, I'd say hold off. Yeah, just a tip. Toot toot. Pro Evolution Soccer 2017 will actually have PlayStation Pro 4K support. They said at the October update will add over 39 recognizable players, because what they do is they have all the players in soccer and then they slowly add features to them to make them look more recognizable. But they have another update in November that's going to add 4K resolution for the PlayStation 4 Pro. I can honestly see this increasing PlayStation 4 Pro sales in Japan and the UK, where football is very popular. Soccer is very popular. And Pro Evolution Soccer is actually, it's not as big as FIFA over there, but it has a sizable audience, and it does quite well. I actually like Pro Evolution Soccer quite a bit, and it is the last major Konami franchise, unless you count Metal Gear Survive, and who really does? Toot toot, The Last Guardian has officially gone gold, according to Shuhei Yoshida. On Twitter, he said, I've waited a very long time to say this. The Last Guardian has gone gold. I'm so excited for you all to finally experience it. You know what's funny? It's been 11 years since Team Ico released a game, and of course that was Shadow of the Colossus, a PlayStation 2 game. It came out before the PlayStation 3. Like the system and the Wii. That's how long ago it was. They were just babies from then that have grown up and are walking, talking, riding bikes, and, you know, playing video games that have never been alive when, Team Ico released the game, which is bonkers to me. Currently, PewDiePie is doing a Let's Play of The Last Guardian, which I think is extremely smart from Sony's perspective. Because like I said, those young kids that are like, what is Shadow of the Colossus? What is Ico? I don't care. If PewDiePie plays it, it's increasing the odds it's going to sell very well. In fact, they don't even really need to run television advertisements. That alone will get units to move. Toot toot. We have the free games for the month of November for PlayStation Plus and Xbox One. I put them together because it just makes it easier. On the PlayStation 4, you'll be getting The Deadly Tower of Monsters. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. I actually played that game. Real good story. You want to check it out, but it's very, 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 very slow. It's a walking simulator. I really enjoyed it. Letter Quest Remastered and Pumped BMX on the PlayStation 3. You'll get Costume Quest 2, which I could swear was already a PlayStation Plus game. Dirt 3, Pumped BMX, because that's also on the PlayStation 4. And on the Vita, you'll get Letter Quest Remastered and Pumped BMX, which means you're not getting any real exclusives on Vita. Hopefully they'll have cross-save functionality so you can bounce your save from your Vita to your PlayStation 4. But what about Microsoft? What did they do this month? Well, on the Xbox One, you'll be getting Super Dungeon Brothers from November 1st through the 30th. From November 16th to the 15th of December, you'll get Murdered Soul Suspect, which is a game that I reviewed back when I did written reviews that no one read. I gave that game, I think, a 6.5, somewhere around there. It's a very interesting adventure game. If you like point-and-click adventures, you'll enjoy this. It is a third-person game, but it basically has very similar features. It's very easy, very obvious game. You're not going to get stuck. The puzzles are just, brain dead stupid. And on the Xbox 360, you'll get The Secret of Monkey Island Special Edition. If you really like adventure games, that one's for you. And Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. I actually played Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon when it came out, and I remember people being like, "This is awesome, dude. They're going for something so different." In actuality, it plays exactly like Far Cry 3, and I'd say arguably worse than Far Cry 3, so don't get your hopes up for Blood Dragon. Those two games, of course, will be Xbox One backwards compatible. Toot toot. Here's a really, really shocking bit of news. Respawn Entertainment, the people that have released Titanfall 2 this week, they made an announcement on their blog saying, "Remember when buying a game got you everything? Once you've purchased Titanfall 2, your investment includes a full single-player campaign, the full multiplayer maps and modes, and long-term supports with no hidden costs." What they're saying is Titanfall 2 does not have a season pass. If you buy Titanfall 2 right now and they update the game for the next, year or whatever it's going to be, you're getting all of those features. Now, I do believe there are microtransactions in the game itself, but that's about buying currency to unlock weapons early. But for the entire updates to be free is awesome, because that was something that really hurt Titanfall. They had a pretty healthy player base, but as soon as they decided to start releasing map packs, it became more difficult to find a match online. And when you can't find a match online for an online-only game, why the hell are you even going to play it? By the way, on Tuesday I'll have my episode of Worth It on Titanfall out, so stay tuned for that. Toot toot. This is just a story I put in here because I'm really excited about it. Suda51's very first game, the Silver Case, will be launching on the PlayStation 4 in 2017. Suda51 is the man behind No More Heroes, Fire Pro Wrestling Special 3, and Killer is Dead, Killer 7, Shadows of the Damned. I'm just trying to name every game he's been involved with. Either way, this was a game that was released in 1999 on the PlayStation 1. Looks a lot like Snatcher, and it just looks amazing. And he said he wants to re-release a lot of his older games. So if you're listening, Suda, please re-release Killer 7. Please talk to Capcom and make sure that happens, please. Okay, bye. Toot toot. Really sad news for PlayStation VR and other headset users. Star Trek Bridge Crew has been delayed to 2017. According to Ubisoft, we have decided to push the release of Star Trek Bridge Crew to March 14th, 2017. Star Trek Bridge Crew is designed exclusively for VR, and we want to offer a compelling and engaging experience. Commander of the USS Argus is right around the corner. Great. I understand that it has to be delayed. I thought it looked amazing at E3, and I don't really like Star Trek. I'm like, oh yeah, that show's kind of cool. I think this game has the potential to actually sell headsets. Because people always talk about, oh, people love Star Wars, people will buy anything that has Star Wars on it. All right, that's fine. Star Wars people and their fandom are nothing compared to Star Trek fans. Star Trek, or Trekkers, are hard freaking core. They will buy anything with Star Trek on it, even if they don't like it, just so they can say, look at this thing I own. I hate it, and it has Star Trek on it, which is something I love. It's a love-hate relationship. Toot toot! Watch Dogs 2 is going to be released on November 15th for the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. However, the PC version that was supposed to be out that day has been delayed to November 29th, which is odd. According to Ubisoft, they want to ensure that Watch Dogs 2 runs smoothly across a broad range of hardware. They have mentioned that it will have 4K support and ultra textures, uncapped frame rates, SLI/Crossfire support, windowed mode options, which sounds ridiculous, but some AAA games forget to do that, multi-monitor support, FOV sliders, pixel density, and sharpness sliders. But of course, you'll still have to use some sort of variation of Uplay, so it's a win and lose right there. Ubisoft, please do not release this game if it's going to be broken. PC users do not need any more botched ports. Toot toot! Turtle Rock has announced that they will no longer support Evolve. Earlier this year, Stage 2 of Evolve was released, which had the game go free to play on PC, and now it's being completely abandoned. Of course, this is the game that was released back in 2015? I want to say it was 2015. 2014. It was supposed to be a really big game, and then out of nowhere, it just fizzled out. It was the game where you were 4 humans playing against one monster who was also controlled by a player who would continuously evolve, and you would have to prevent him from becoming too strong, and whoever died lost, and whoever won. There's a description for you. According to Turtle Rock, it's always hard to leave one of our games behind. Left 4 Dead was no different, and now it's Evolve's turn. There will always be a special place in our heart for our past projects. This is the life of AAA game developers who aren't self-funded and don't own their own IP. We don't get to make the call. We all know that going in, but we still sign the dotted line because we love what we do. We are happy to have gotten the opportunity to do something risky, something new, and something innovative. It sounds like 2K is pulling the plug, and I can't really blame them. Evolve sold great at first, but their user base just plummeted, and they were banking on a lot of people buying DLC. I mean, that was the thing. When the game launched, it was like, there's hundreds of dollars of DLC on here. How dare they? So, it's kind of their own fault because that's bad PR, and they should have doled that out slowly instead of just dropping it on everyone all at once. But nevertheless, Evolve deserved better, and I wish it was free to play on console. I wish it would get that support, but it's just not going to happen. 2K needs that money so that they can continue to support, Battleborn. Toot toot! There have been 6 more games that have been added to Xbox One backwards compatibility. They are as follows. The Orange Box, which is the collection that includes Half-Life 2, Episode 1, Episode 2, Team Fortress 2, and Portal. And I really like Team Fortress 2 on the Orange Box on Xbox 360 because it's never been updated, and so it kind of has this really fresh feel to it. It's just the original version. Also, Galaga Legends, Joe Danger 2, the movie, Rage, Killer is Dead by Suda51, and Shred Nebula. Rage is a better game than people give it credit for, so if you own a copy of Rage, I recommend that you play it. And if you don't, you can pick it up for very cheap. I want to say like about $8, I want to say. Go get yourself a copy. Toot toot. Darksiders Remastered. It is Darksiders Remastered. It's not the most complicated game to remaster. However, it has been announced that it will not launch on October 25th. It has now been delayed to November 22nd. It will only be $20. I would be I don't honestly get why they delayed this. If it has something to do with polish, it wouldn't be a month delay. If it has something to do with not wanting to be caught up in big releases, they want to get their own time to shine. November 25th is not that good of a time to do this because that's right when Final Fantasy 15 is going to be out. And I think a lot of people are going to be looking at that. I mean, it's a $20 game. So, and if you never played the first Darksiders, it's good. And also Darksiders 2 Remastered is available on a bunch of different consoles. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not Darksiders 2, it's Darksiders 2 Definitive Edition. Toot toot. Here are the games that are going to be out this week. On Tuesday, Hitman Episode 6 Hokkaido will be released, which I believe is the end of the episodes for the time being. Super Dungeon Brothers will be on the PlayStation 4 and PC. That game, of course, will be free. Steam World Collection will be on the PlayStation 4 and Wii U. We got a Wii U game, which will be the collection of Steam World Dig and Steam World Heist on a disc. Seraph will be on the PlayStation 4. Root Letter will be on the PlayStation Vita. Owlboy will be on the PC. And Xanadu Next will be out on the PC on Friday, though. This is when things get serious. Mario Party Star Rush will be out on 3DS. So be careful. People are going to be on the streets, going 100 miles an hour trying to buy that goddamn Mario Party. Football Manager 2017 will be out on PC, which apparently is going to be simulating Brexit, which is kind of fascinating. And lastly, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare will be out on the PlayStation 4, and if you buy the $80 version, will also include Modern Warfare Remastered. I'll be doing an episode of Worth It on Infinite Warfare. So Activision, please don't take down my video. That's going to do it for the hype train. It's so nice to be off the hype train. Man, that place can get pretty intense. I need to relax for a bit. Get outside. I know a place that's always warm with the glow of cold, hard cash. That's right. It's time for the Chart Park, the land where money grows on trees. Yes, the Chart Park. This is the part of the show we talk about the legal, business, and financial news in the video game industry, and we find out which fat cats of Wall Street will tip their top hats towards Lady Luck. We have to start it off with some, I guess you could call this pseudo-political news. It's really just business news. But of course, SAG-AFTRA has gone on strike. The video game voice actor union is officially going on strike. Well, why is this? Well, according to Scott Wilthlin, this is why. This is a long statement, so buckle up, kids. The video game companies did everything in their power to reach agreement with union. Oh, wait, no. This is the wrong quote. This is a quote from the person that was negotiating with SAG-AFTRA. He represented the video game developers. My mistake. Here's what he said. The video game companies did everything in their power to reach agreement with union leaders, offering money packages almost identical to SAG-AFTRA's last demand. We are greatly disappointed that SAG-AFTRA refuses to allow its members to have a democratic vote on our proposal and decide if the significant money on the table is acceptable to them. The strike is going to hurt SAG-AFTRA performers that these companies value. The strike will have little to no immediate impact on the ability of fans to buy and play the video games they love, as the majority of the upcoming games are already in pre-production, and the union is not permitted to strike most of the games due to the nature of no-strike provisions of the Interactive Media Agreement. The sad part is, the very performers who these companies value are who are... This guy cannot talk. And who are impacted by the union decision to strike never got a chance to vote on the company's proposals. Well, geez. SAG-AFTRA just screwed over all their actors, huh? Why would they even want to go on strike? Well, here's what their demands were. Number one, they wanted additional full-scale payments for every 500,000 copies sold, which for most voice actors would only be a couple $1,000. So you sell 500,000 copies, I want a couple $1,000. I want to make a little bit of scale on this. Okay. They also wanted a bonus if a game sells 2, 4, 6, or 8 million copies. So when they sell 4 million copies, I get a bump. When it sells 6 million copies, I'd get a bump. 8 million copies, I'd get a bump. When it says 10 million copies, no bump. But I would still receive the funds from the 500,000 units sold. I'm not sure why I'm putting myself in there as the example, but we're just going to go with it. Number two, they want to limit vocally stressful sessions to 2 hours. Currently, the limit is 4 hours. You ever notice when you're playing a game how many grunts and screams and gravelly voices there are? Those are vocally aggressive sessions for the voice actors. And they can hurt their voices. They can create vocal nodes that can take them out of actions for weeks, months, even years, requiring surgery, getting blood in their throat. It sounds ridiculous, but I mean, just try to do one of their sessions where they're just doing all the voices for combat. I mean, listen, next time you play a game, just how often there's a grunt or a moan or a scream or whatever. It's ridiculous and it's insane. And they're saying, please, let's limit these sessions to 2 hours so we don't destroy our living. Because after all, these guys only make like $900, $1,000 per session. They need to go find another job. They're in LA most of the time. That's an expensive city to live in. So they need to keep bouncing from job to job. If your session is just so intense that they can't work tomorrow or the next day, which most of these voice actors work 7 days a week, even the biggest ones in the world. Steve Bloom, the guy who does a bunch of voices in video games, also did the voice of Spike in Cowboy Bebop, also did voices in a lot of anime like Rurouni Kenshin. He's talked about how, despite being in the industry for years and years and years and years and years, despite having the Guinness Book of World Record for having the most voices in video games, period, he's only made $300,000, which is not a small amount of money, but for all the stuff he's in, all these properties that make so much money, you'd think he'd be making more. Anyway, number 3, they want to know what's in the game. Problem is, for a lot of these voice actors, they sign on to unnamed projects. They don't know who they're playing. They don't know what the project is because they don't want any leaks, and they don't even know the content that they're going to be putting out there. So let's say you do a lot of voices for kids shows, and then you're brought in there, and they're like, okay, so this is Mafia 3, and you are going to be playing a racist, okay? So sit down there and just say these ethnic slurs. Now, morally, they might have issues with that. Even if it's acting, morally, they might have issues. Or professionally, they might have issues like, no, this is going to ruin my image. I do kids shows. Don't make me use ethnic slurs. Don't make me make violent threats. I thought this was going to be a kids game, but they don't know, and they got to make a living. And so they just keep signing on to unnamed projects. And because they don't know what kind of game this is, they have no idea how long they're signed on for. Like, the project might take months. They don't know. They have absolutely no idea. And that's irresponsible. And so that's exactly what SAG-AFTRA wants. They also put out a statement that said, this group of video game employers knowingly feeds off other industries that pay these same performers fairly to make a living, such as, voice acting for cartoons. This represents a freeloader model of compensation that we believe cannot and should not continue. No matter what these companies are peddling in their press releases, this negotiation is not only about the upfront compensation, it's also about fairness and the ability of middle-class performers to survive in this industry. These companies are immensely profitable, and successful games, which are the only games this dispute is about, drive that profit. And he's right. He's talking about 500,000 copies or more. Very successful games. Makes sense. We proposed a fair payment structure that enables the suitability of professional performer community. These employers have unreasonably refused that. Also, keep in mind that most of the things that are in their contracts for the union were created back in the 1990s. Go back to the 1990s and listen to voice acting. It was a very different time. Much worse time, I might add. From what I've heard, I was listening to the Easy Allies podcast, which is a great podcast. I recommend it. There's a rumor going around that the reason they don't want this to get out of control is because they don't want developers to unionize. And I know people are very conflicted about unions. Some people think that they, enable a group of people to have a fair living wage. Other people think that they limit growth in business and actually result in layoffs. And those are actually both correct. Both absolutely 100% correct, because there are some unions out there that obviously go too far and hurt industries, and there are other unions out there that are protecting people. And it seems in this case, they're just trying to protect people. As for developers, should they unionize? We were talking about Amy Hennig, a couple weeks ago, and how people will literally faint at work from developing games for 12 hours, 16 hours a day, every day of the week. I think they should, because I think the way that developers are working right now is a bit crazy. They know what they're signing on for, and they do get paid very well, but, the quality of life, there's something to be said about that. And usually happy developers make better games. Just putting that out there. Moving on, Bethesda has also made an announcement. They've decided they will not send out advanced copies of games for review ever again. Here's what they've said. At Bethesda, we value media reviews. We read them. We watch them. We try to learn from them when they offer critique, and we understand their value to our players. While we will continue to work with media streamers and YouTubers to support their coverage, both before and after release, we want everyone, including those in the media, to experience the games at the same time. That's kind of amazing. Those reviewers, critics, who needs them? Just give the games to the people. Give it to the people on YouTube. That'll work out just fine. And people will go out in droves and they will buy those games because they see Bethesda's name and they have confidence in that brand. Until they don't. Until you release another game like Wet. Or you release, just a game that doesn't live up to expectation. Suddenly, people will just go based off of their own personal experiences. And reviews still matter. People still go to Metacritic, they still go to IGN, they still go to GameSpot, they still go to Polygon, they go to many different websites. Game Rankings and OpenCritic and all of these sites, people still go there. And if you're going to take the reviews away, that'll work. That'll work just fine. But if you release a couple of duds, you're not going to get the word out. And I'm willing to bet if they release a couple of duds, they will immediately turn it back around and be like, oh, never mind, here's review copies. And I know they cited a few games in here like, oh, Doom did really well, and we didn't give review copies for that. Yeah, it did. But you released review copies for Fallout 4, and it also did well. What are you trying to say, man? What are you trying to say? Moving on. No Man's Sky. Yes, we're talking about this still. It's kind of a controversial game. Many people found it to be disappointing because it was hyped up for years. And I really enjoyed it. Most people did not, I assume. I take that back. I bet most people enjoyed it. Most. But plenty of people were very vocal on the internet about how much they hated this game. And Hello Games and its founder, Sean Murray, kind of went radio silent. The game launched. Sean Murray put out a tweet that was talking about how, wow, look at these two players. They found each other. This is an incredible experience. And that was it. We haven't heard from them since. And people want answers. So, they got one answer earlier this week when Hello Games Twitter put out a tweet that said, No Man's Sky was a mistake. And the internet exploded. Why would they say that? Oh my God, finally they admit it. I'm not trying to brag, but I immediately went, that's a hacked Twitter account. That's not real. That's hacked. And other people are like, oh, I don't know, man. It seems legit. And then immediately Sean Murray went on to Twitter and said, 100% not hacked anymore. Obviously, those mails and that tweet were fake. Back to work. I mean, this is exactly what the hacker wanted. They made sure that they would put out a tweet that would be so shocking, it would make the news rounds immediately. And it would require Sean Murray and Hello Games to respond, to say, hey, this is a hack. They just wanted them to say something. But all they got was, that was a hack, back to work. See? Sean Murray's still working on the game. They're still updating No Man's Sky. I still think it's a good game. I think it's one of the best games of the year. Still do, honestly. Highly recommend it. If you have the patience for that style of game. And if you don't, of course you're not going to like it. Moving on. Some very sad news. For me personally, United Front Games has shut down. They were the developers of games like Mod Nation Racers, Little Big Planet Karting, and one of my personal favorites, Sleeping Dogs, which is a fantastic open world game. Highly recommend you play it. It's available on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, damn near everything. Go buy Sleeping Dogs. It's incredible. But after Sleeping Dogs, things started to get a little muddy. They tried making this MMO based off of Sleeping Dogs called Triad Wars. That went nowhere. And then it got canceled. And then they were working on that game called Smash and Grab, which was getting, mixed, but some positive, some negative impressions. It's an early access game. And now they are just going to close the studio. And I'm totally gutted by this, because if you play Sleeping Dogs, you will see just an incredible open world game. Just so much imagination, so different from all the other open world games. More focused on melee combat. The driving is just more arcadey. It's like an action movie. I highly recommend that game. And, goodbye. United Front Games. Moving on, Nintendo has cut their financial forecast by $50 million. Originally, they were, I didn't have that note down here. I'm rusty, guys. Give me a break. The revenue for their last quarter was $1.32 billion, which was down 33% compared to the same quarter last year. They also had a loss of $57.1 million for the last quarter. They now expect to make 30 billion yen for this upcoming quarter. They had originally predicted 45 billion yen. I got my notes screwed up. So not doing very well over at Nintendo. Hopefully the Switch and its buzz can help them a little bit, but I doubt it, as I mentioned in the very first part of the show. Capcom also didn't do very well. Their sales were at $273 million, which is actually a 9% drop compared to last year. Operating income also dropped to $16 million. That is a 41% decline compared to 2015 when it was $27 million. And it makes sense. They don't have any games. Street Fighter V sold less than 100,000 units in the past quarter, so it's official. That game is a bomb. Street Fighter V is a bomb. It will not recover. Make it free to play, you stupids. Umbrella Corps, there's a bomb. Did not do well. Resident Evil 7, months and months away. They are banking everything on Resident Evil 7. They had better take their time and make sure that game is good, because they do not have any franchises right now. Capcom is out of franchises. How bonkers is that? They won't put out a Mega Man game. Monster Hunter is the only thing keeping them afloat. Good luck. Moving on, we also have the Xbox One quarterly report. All game revenues dropped by 5%, which is $110 million lower than the same period last year. Overall, that's we're not just talking about revenue. Hardware revenue dropped 26% because they sold fewer Xbox One consoles. Also, they're selling them at a cheaper price. They did not give numbers on how many units were sold. They did mention that Xbox Live revenue is up 6%. They have 47 million active Xbox Live users, which is up by 8 million. So that's impressive. The Microsoft overall, they reached 20.5 billion for the quarter, and they had a profit of 4.7 billion. The Xbox brand is doing better, but the actual division itself is doing worse. It's a very complicated matter where, they're not selling as many units and the consoles are cheaper. And also, this is not exclusive to them. The PlayStation 4 has also been dipping significantly. Like I mentioned, overall consoles are just not selling as well. Moving on, there's a brand new Xbox One ad. There is no reason to bring up this story except I just want to gloat a little bit. In this ad, it says, Xbox One, the best-selling console in America. They mentioned they have over 1,000 games, over 100 exclusives. They have the fastest, most reliable network in Xbox Live. Did I not detail this advertisement verbatim for the past month? I said word for word what they're supposed to say, and they did it. Now, I'm not so full of myself to ignore one aspect I didn't mention previously. They reference nearly 1,000 games. That's really smart of them. They're talking about like, hey, we've got the same games as PlayStation 4. For an advertisement, that sounds weird, but when you put that right in the middle of having the best network, being the best-selling console, and also having 100 exclusives, makes sense. Good on you, Microsoft. But yes, video game hardware is not doing very well. In fact, NPD was talking about the month of September, and they said hardware sales fell by 25%. $234 million, down from $311.7 million. That would be for the same quarter last year. Software sales down 22%. Accessories down 27%. It's just not working out. This is actually rather worrying news because if consoles aren't moving as well as they were supposed to be, then that means that consoles are losing ground, and that would be terrible. But I am somewhat optimistic that this is the result of Sony and Microsoft's rumored and then announced updated consoles. That maybe people are just holding off for the PlayStation 4 Pro or the Xbox One Scorpio. I hope that's the case. I really do, because if it's not, there's an underlying problem. And it could mean that people just aren't buying consoles because everyone that wanted one has one, or it could mean that maybe there's more being traded in at right now. People are selling their consoles. That could be a possibility. We don't know for sure, but very troubling. Hopefully October they do better. Hopefully November they knock it out of the park, because that's a real indicator for the holiday season. Let's talk about where the best-selling games in America for the month of September. Number 10 was Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Number 9 was Forza Horizon 3, which does not include digital sales. Number 8 was Overwatch, which does not include PC digital sales. Number 7 was Grand Theft Auto 5. Number 6 was Destiny the Collection. Number 5 was BioShock the Collection. Number 4 was NHL 17. Number 3 was FIFA 17. Number 2 was Madden NFL 17. And number 1 was NBA 2K17. So the top 4 games, all sports titles. Pray for sports. What about over in the UK, though? The Cursed Land of the Queen and her crumpets. Well, here are the 10 best-selling games over in the UK. Number 10 is Minecraft Xbox Edition. Number 9 is Grand Theft Auto 5. Number 8 is Forza Horizon 3. Number 7 is Rise of the Tomb Raider 20th Year Edition. Number 6 is WWE 2K17. Number 5 is Batman Return to Arkham. Number 4 was Gears of War 4. Number 3 is Mafia 3. Number 2 is FIFA 17. And number 1 is Battlefield 1. I love this list. Listen to that. At number 4, Gears of War 4. Number 3, Mafia 3. Number 1, Battlefield 1. Oh, I'm in love with this UK chart. Good job, UK. You've done a bang-up job. That's what you guys say, right? Bang-up job? I don't know. Maybe that's a sex thing. I'm sorry. Let's go over to the Cursed Land of Trains, known as Japan, to find out where the best-selling games over there. Number 10 is Rise of the Tomb Raider 20th Year Edition. Number 9 is Idle Death Game TV on the Vita. Number 8 is Yokai Watch 3 Sushi Tempura on the 3DS. Number 7 is Paper Mario Color Splash on the Wii U. Number 6 is NBA 2K17 on the PlayStation 4. Kind of impressed to see it there. I know basketball is popular in Japan. I just didn't know American basketball was popular. Number 5 on the Vita is Rico Love Blue Ocean / Gold Beach. Number 4 is Macross Delta Scramble on the PlayStation Vita. Number 3 on the 3DS is Monster Hunter Stories. Number 2 is Mario Party Star Rush on the 3DS. People were just rushing in those stores to buy them. And number 1 is Battlefield 1 on the PlayStation 4. But keep in mind, Japanese people don't like first-person shooters. So who knows how they got up there. Number 1. Just like Overwatch, you know. Or they don't like third-person shooters either, like Splatoon, which was number 1 up there regularly, you know? I just hate that conventional wisdom about the Japanese market. Oh, they don't like this style of game. Yes, they do, if it's good. What were the best-selling consoles in Japan? Real quick, I want to make a note. Last week, the PlayStation VR sold 51,000 copies in Japan, which was an incredible achievement. Just incredible. Amazing. However, this week, it kicked off with the PlayStation 4 with 27,069, new 3DS LL with 14,092, PlayStation Vita with 8,853, 2DS with 7,404, new 3DS with 2,700, Wii U with 1,919, PlayStation 3 with 763, Xbox One with 752, 3DS with 370, and 3DS LL with 77. Now here's the thing. PlayStation VR does not make an appearance on that list, which means either they took it off there because it's an accessory, or it didn't place, which would mean that it would have sold less than 77 units? That seems kind of impossible. I don't know. Either way, let's make a note that the Xbox One is at 752 units. They sold even better, probably because of Battlefield 1, and they outpaced the 3DS LL and the 3DS, meaning it's the third worst selling console in Japan. Remarkable. Doing amazing things over there in Microsoft. But that's going to have to do it for the Chart Park, the land where money grows on trees. We've talked about the big cash. Now it's time to talk about the tinier things. That's right, it's time to get tiny. It's time for Pocket Talk, Pocket Talk, Pocket Talk. We have some very interesting news from DNA. Of course, DENA are the Japanese mobile developers that have partnered up with Nintendo recently to create things like Miitomo, as well as work on Super Mario Run. They're going to be helping out with the Switch, apparently. Well, they just recently dissolved their subdivision, DNA Global. Due to the shrinking Western market, they have given up entirely on America and the UK. Whether this is due to some deal with Nintendo and maybe they're just banking on Nintendo to, publish those games or open up different avenues for them, no one can really say. But the DNA games that have nothing to do with Nintendo apparently just aren't going to be coming out, which is kind of shocking. So, there you go. Weirdest story of the week in my book. And Pokemon Go has officially reached $600 million in less than 90 days, making it the fastest mobile game to reach that amount ever. I mean, 600 million in 90 days, that is absolutely incredible. Also, keep in mind, you do not pay for this game. It is free to play. This is just people buying microtransactions after microtransactions. And that adds up to a lot of cash. Which means Pokemon companies, they're doing okay these days. And that was really it. That's going to have to do it for Pocket Doc, Pocket Doc, Pocket Doc. Let's take the mushroom. There really wasn't that much, mobile news, like mobile phones, handhelds, nothing really happened. Ooh, wait, oh crap, I forgot one story. Oh, no, I didn't. Because it's not going to be in Pocket Talk. It's going to be in the Idiot of the Week. This Idiot of the Week is Samsung. Because about 2 weeks ago, somebody put up a video of Grand Theft Auto 5 on PC where they had modded it so that they could actually use a Galaxy Note 7 instead of a grenade to make things explode. It's a funny little joke. In case you don't know, the Galaxy Note 7 is a pretty cool little device. It's like a phablet phone. It's cool. I mean, except it explodes. It explodes. It blows up. It burns people. When it blows up, it explodes in a million pieces. The federal government says you can't take them on planes anymore because they don't want planes exploding. But other than that, great phone. You're doing a great job there. And, Samsung apparently got wind of this and decided to, what was that? Right, they took down the video. They actually used a DMCA takedown on YouTube to remove the video. It's now back up, of course, because you can't delete anything off the internet. But Samsung, if you have such thin skin there, maybe don't make a phone that explodes. Test your goddamn devices before you put them on the market and kill people. They haven't killed anybody yet, but I'm just going to put on a limb there and say that having gigantic explosions from your hip it might cause some problems for you and your mortality. But you know what, Samsung? The important thing is not to deeply apologize for that. The important thing is not to immediately remove all those phones off the market. That's not important. I mean, you've asked for a recall and all that kind of stuff. You're just trying to keep it a little more low key. That's not important. Don't get that too big. What's important is jerks on YouTube that make videos that make your phones look bad, and they put you in a video game. That's not cool. Knock it off, or else we'll take your video down. No. I'm sorry. Samsung, you make some great televisions. You make some great phones. I actually own one of your phones. But I'm sorry, you are the idiot of the week. You jerks, dumbos, jackasses. Taking down a goddamn YouTube video. That's a stupid company. No wonder your phones explode. Yeah, that's smart. Okay, that might have been mean. So like I said, I had the past 2 weeks, or we didn't do a show last week, so we didn't really cover all of the anniversaries that occurred for the past week. But I'm going to resolve that right now, because I have 2 weeks worth of strong history. This is the part of the show where we talk about the upcoming anniversaries, and this will be for the week of the 23rd of October through the 5th of November. We go from 10 years ago to beyond. 10 years ago, Snoopy vs. the Red Baron was released on the PlayStation 2. That's apparently a very popular Snoopy game. I never got a chance to play it, but people say it was great. Reservoir Dogs was released on the PlayStation 2. A terrible licensed game. But if you want to hear an imitation Steve Buscemi, that's one of the places you can go. Marvel Ultimate Alliance was released on damn near everything, which was a great follow-up to the X-Men Legends series that had characters like Spider-Man, Thor, Iron Man all working together. They did re-release on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and PC, but I guess that port is not great. Also 10 years ago, Dark Messiah of Might and Magic was released on the PC. One of the most anticipated games, very impressive game. Didn't shake out too well though. Some people still love it though. On the PlayStation 2, .hack//.gu Volume 1 Rebirth was released. On the PSP, Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories was released, which was very impressive. This was supposed to be the killer app on the PSP. It was not. It was not. I mean, they had tried with Liberty City Stories, and that just didn't work out. So they thought perhaps we'll do it again with Vice City, and that will turn this whole thing around. No. And lastly, Final Fantasy XII was released on the PlayStation 2, which is a great game, and I'm actually staring at my copy right now. I think it's a very underrated Final Fantasy game with a very interesting sort of MMO system. Love the battle system in that game. Always wish that we could have gotten the original vision for Final Fantasy XII because there was apparently a story that involved a middle-aged man as the protagonist. But Square Enix was like, no, we want pretty men with pretty hair to be the protagonist. You can't have an old guy. Kind of a shame. Could have taken the series in a whole new direction because they've been kind of spinning out of control since Final Fantasy XII. 11 years ago, Metroid Prime Pinball was released on the DS. This is just me reminding you that there was a Metroid Prime Pinball. Sid Meier's Civilization 4 was released, which was an all-time classic. I feel like that's when Sid Meier's Civilization that's when it became perfect. Also, 11 years ago on the PSP, Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories. So, you already know about that. And on the GameCube, Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix. Yeah, that is a terrible DDR game and mostly consists of children's songs, like public domain things. Who wants to dance to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? Well, I do, but I can do that without that game. 12 years ago on the PlayStation 2, Killzone was released. Very interesting series. Might be done now officially, but Shadowfall is a great game if you haven't played it on the PlayStation 4. And they even had a great Vita game, so check those out. First game doesn't hold up so good. On the PlayStation 2, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was released. Incredible game. Amazing game. Not my favorite, though. On the Game Boy Advance, Grand Theft Auto was released, which was a sort of a throwback to the 2D top-down Grand Theft Auto games. I enjoyed it quite a bit. There's really nowhere to get that, so emulate away. 13 years ago on the PlayStation 2, True Crime Streets of LA was released, which was one of my favorite PS2 games. I don't know if I told this story already, but I was at a Goodwill recently, and there were these two girls looking in a glass case. I'm not sure how old they were. They were younger, though. And they went, oh, man, a GameCube. Oh, man, yeah. You remember True Crime? Yeah. I was like, wow. These two random girls are really hyped about True Crime Streets of LA on the GameCube. That's just kind of bonkers to me. Very interesting franchise. Snoop Dogg was a playable character in this game, and Christopher Walken did a voice in it. It was, it's not great. I still have my copy. It had branching paths, and if you branched off one path, it became a supernatural game instead of like a crime game. Very, very weird. 13 years ago, Fire Emblem was launched on the Game Boy Advance in America, the first real kickoff of Fire Emblem in the West. Also 13 years ago, WWE SmackDown Here Comes the Pain was launched on the PlayStation 2, the last great wrestling game. Great wrestling game. And Tony Hawk's Underground was released on the PlayStation 2. Tony Hawk got off the board, the fans got off the series. Now, 14 years ago on the GameCube, Phantasy Star Online Episodes 1 and 2 was released, ironically, not online, though many people got their only exposure to the series on the GameCube, because you could have 4-player split screen. Great games. On the PlayStation 2, Suikoden 3 was released. This is when the series started to decline. On the PlayStation 2, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. This is when the series also started to decline. And on the PlayStation 2, Grand Theft Auto Vice City was released. One of my all-time favorite games. I will still say that is that's the best one on the PlayStation 2. It's a toss-up between 4 and Vice City for me. Love those games. Adore those games. On the PlayStation 2, Ratchet & Clank was released. And on the Xbox, Metal Gear Solid 2 Subsistence was released, which at the time was mind-blowing because that's a PS2 exclusive. Oh, what are they doing? Don't go to Microsoft. I was a dumb fanboy. I was freaking out over this. It was a different time, kids. 15 years ago on the Game Boy Advance, the very first Mega Man Battle Network was released. A very awesome subseries in the Mega Man franchise. It's action, turn-based. it's perfect. You can play any of them. They all pretty much play identically, so take whichever one you want. On the PlayStation 2, SSX Tricky was launched on the PlayStation 2. And also on the PlayStation 2, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. This is what happens when you do a history segment and you're talking about annualized franchises. And lastly, 15 years ago, Victorious Boxers Ipo's Road to Glory was released on the PlayStation 2. This is one of my all-time favorite boxing games. It is based off of an anime and manga that I hold very, very dear to my heart. And if you get a chance, play it. Imagine Punch-Out if you both had the stupid superpowers. That's what Victorious Boxers was. Wow. Oh, God. 16 years ago, Mega Man Legends 2 was released on the PlayStation. Great game. And The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask was released on the 64. I didn't play Majora's Mask when it came out. Why not? Because 16 years ago, that exact same week, the PlayStation 2 was launched, alongside Dynasty Warriors, Armored Core 2, Dead or Alive 2, ESPN International Track and Field, ESPN Winter Games Snowboarding, Eternal Ring, Eternal Evergrace, Fantavision, Gun Griffin Blaze, Midnight Club Street Racing, MotoGP, NHL 2011, Orphan, Scorn of Sorcery, Red Rumble Boxing Round 2, Ridge Racer V5, SSX, Silent Scope, Smuggler's Run, Street Fighter EX3, Summoner, Swing Away Golf, Tekken Tag Tournament, Time Splitters, and Unreal Tournament. That was one hell of a launch. The PlayStation 2, you had full shelves on the first day. Very impressive. Also, 17 years ago, Omicron the Nomad Soul was released on Windows. This, of course, was the very first game by Quantum Dream. They would go on to make things like Detroit Beyond Human, Heavy Rain, and Beyond Two Souls. This was their first game and also had an appearance by David Bowie. 18 years ago, Colony Wars Vengeance was released on the PlayStation. Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped was released on the PlayStation. The last Crash Bandicoot main series game on the system. And Bushido Blade 2 was released on the PlayStation, one of my all-time favorites. 19 years ago, Crash Bandicoot 2, remember we said about annualized franchises, was released on the PlayStation. Colony Wars, the very first one, great series, was released on the PlayStation. In fact, I think they should bring that one maybe to mobile. That'd be cool. And Jet Moto 2 was released on the PlayStation. Maybe they should take that one to mobile too while they're at it. 20 years ago, Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble was released. So there's your SNES game. Cruisin' USA was released on Nintendo 64. Twisted Metal 2 was released on the PlayStation. And Blood Omen Legacy of Kain was released. What an odd time to be alive. You got the SNES, 64, and PlayStation all getting supported. And I assume probably some Genesis games somewhere. 21 years ago, XCOM UFO Defense on the PlayStation. I hate this game. I love XCOM. I love XCOM on the PC. This port on the PlayStation is garbage. You do not want to play XCOM with a controller on the PlayStation 1, let alone just a D-pad with a slow moving cursor. No. You do not. You really don't. 22 years ago, Way of the Warrior was released on the 3DO. That was the very first game by Studio... God, what was their name? I can't remember. Either way, they made some other games. One of them was called Uncharted and The Last of Us. Oh, that's right. Way of the Warrior on the 3DO is the very first game by Naughty Dog. Also, 22 years ago, on the Jaguar, because I'm trying to include more Jaguar games on the list, Dragon, the Bruce Lee story was released. This was a biopic back in the 90s about Bruce Lee that they made a video game out of, which is horrifying. Go take a look at it if you want to see Bruce Lee beating up a chef behind a restaurant. The game, I mean, not the movie. They just decided to include that. 22 years ago, Donkey Kong Country was released on the SNES, and Ideas Factory was founded in Japan. 23 years ago, Reader Rabbit 2 was launched on Windows. I know you like that game. Don't act like you're too cool for Reader Rabbit 2. 24 years ago, Shin Megami Tensei was launched on the Super Nintendo in Japan. 28 years ago, Super Mario Bros. 3 was launched in Japan, and the Genesis was launched in Japan. Not that big of a deal in the not that big of a deal in Japan though, because the Genesis just never caught on in Japan. which is funny because their next system, the Saturn, would do gangbusters. 30 years ago, Vampire Killer was launched on the MSX in Japan, which of course was Castlevania. This is a very bad port of Castlevania. There's no scrolling, it's just screen after screen after screen. Also 30 years ago, Sega Master System got their mascot in Alex Kidd in Miracle World when it was released in Japan 30 years ago. 16 years ago, this is where we stop. We're not going in chronological. I just want to bring up the games that I thought were really cool from this point. 16 years ago, this week, Jet Grind Radio was launched on the Dreamcast, one of my all-time favorite games. It is a amazing, cel-shaded masterpiece that doesn't play very well anymore. I'm not going to lie to you and be like, oh, it holds up perfectly. It does not. It does not. The camera's kind of wonky, the controls don't always work, and sometimes it's difficult to find your next objective. But Jet Grind Radio combined skating like skating like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater with sort of like creating your own art. You'd run around and spray paint walls, and that would mean the police would come after you and have to escape them. So it's kind of like Grand Theft Auto and Tony Hawk all in one. It was a very, 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 very good game. Still is, even if it doesn't hold up. And 14 years ago, Shenmue 2 was launched on the Xbox. That is the only launch of Shenmue 2 in the West. Because, sadly, the Dreamcast version never came to America. It went over to the UK, it went over to Japan, but here in America, we had to wait for the original Xbox version. And I just adored it. I played a lot of it. And I still plan on doing a entire playthrough of that game. Whenever all the releases slow down, I'll probably just do a week worth of streaming. We can play through Shenmue 2 together, which I would very much like. But that's going to have to do it for Strong History. Well, the show isn't dead. It's still alive. But regardless, we need to close out the show. Remember, you can go to youtube.com/videogameswere dumb and you can check out... I did a bunch of episodes of Worth It. Just go look at it, you jerks. I did an episode of Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, you jerks. I did an episode of Mafia 3, you jerks. I did an episode of Battlefield 1, you jerks. I did an episode of PlayStation VR, you jerks. I did an episode of Batman VR, you jerks. I did an episode of Until Dawn Rush of Blood, you jerks. There's so many videos you haven't watched yet, and they are worth it. If you want to follow the PRESSURECAST, you can email pressurecast@gmail.com. You can... text 954-947-7377 or leave a voicemail, or you can even tweet at VGADumb. I changed the Twitter. It's now VGADumb for Video Games Are Dumb. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Dr. Cryshop and blah, 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 blah. This has been a bit of a slapdash show. I'm just a little rusty. I need to pick up the slack and get back into the game, and I will do so, hopefully with you listening next week. Yes, the show is dead, but of course it came back. Because the PRESSURECAST is forever. See you guys. PRESSURECAST, weekly video game news podcast, is solely owned and operated by Colin Tanner. Guests of the PRESSURECAST are not employees or freelancers of Colin Tanner, the PRESSURECAST, or VideoGamesAreDumb.com, and are not paid. Music featured on the PRESSURECAST is property of their respective owners, and no infringement is intended. For more information, email pressurecast@gmail.com. Com. 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 Com.